Photoshop professionals. Here's your host, Matt Kloskowski.
Well, this kicks off retouching week for Photoshop Killer Tips, where I'll give you a retouching tip each day. And we're going to start with an oldie but a goodie, because I've always got to give this one as a tip, because the default settings still don't get set to what we mostly really want them set to. So I think it's a really important tip, and that is when you're retouching, like using the clone stamp tool or the healing brush or something like that, or even the spot healing brush. And in fact, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to grab the clone stamp tool. The problem is we always suggest that you do your retouching on a separate blank layer, and that kind of gives you the flexibility to be able to change it later on if you want to go back to make it better, to make it to make it more apparent, less apparent, whatever. But you always want to do it onto a separate layer. The problem is, if I add a blank layer here, okay, and I grab my clone stamp and I hold down Option to sample, and then I start to paint to remove this little spot, nothing's happening. So why is that happening? Because what I'm sampling from is a blank layer. So when I start to paint with what I'm sampling from, I get nothing. And that's because there's an option right up here in the top options bar called Sample. All right, it's a checkbox in earlier versions of Photoshop. I'm using CS4, so it's actually a menu item. But when you change it, you want to change it to all layers. Okay, and that way, now I've got the blank layer selected, but when I sample, I'm sampling from all layers that are underneath my cursor. So I click, I've sampled, and now I can come in here and I can start to paint. And you'll see I'll be getting rid of these little spots right here. All right, we got one over here. And we got one over here. Try to get rid of that guy. That's looking pretty good. I got a couple more. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time trying to get rid of them, but when I do turn that layer off, you can see here the spots come back and then they go away. So that's why if you ever needed to get back, not that you'd want your spots back, but any type of retouching, a lot of times you do change your mind later on. You want to make something more apparent or less apparent. Having it on a separate layer will help you do that. In order to get there, make sure you turn this sample option. Leave it on to all layers. I can't really think of many circumstances where you want to keep it off.